Hi everyone, my name is Nali, and today I am going to be giving an introduction to whales, but first I want to say thank you to Steve for that amazing presentation and this very smooth transition from Michael Jackson to whales, very connected two topics here. I also want to say thank you to everyone who helped me with today's presentation, because it definitely was a lot of work and I'm very grateful for everyone. So yeah, I'm just going to move on with things now. Okay, so a lot of you might not know who am I. You might be like, whoa, who is this person up here talking to me about whales? So a little bit about who I am. Many of you know I am the offspring of Missy and Henry Silva, who are lovingly in the very center of the room. Everybody give them attention, embarrass my father, appreciate it. Aside from being their amazing daughter, I am also a marine biologist with a minor in environmental science and a certificate in geographic informational systems, which in other words means I put data on maps. I also love the deep sea, which is anything below 200 meters where there's limited light. That has the tendency to have really creepy, crawly, gross things growing, and that's what I love. I have currently completed research in coastal algae distribution, as well as longfin pilot whale logging times, which just means whale sleeping. And for my presentation, I am going to ask that everyone holds any questions for the end. I have a big time slot reserved for questions, and that's what I'm most excited for. I love answering questions, so please have some ready for me. But I just have some images. It's very grainy, wow. This is an image of me and my friends on our research vessel where we're collecting data for our longfin pilot whale research. As you can see, research gets very messy and very wet. This is me, a beautiful photo, completing a dissection of a sea urchin to test for possible pollutant contaminants. And good, me, no, bad, bad, better. Nice. Oh, that is better. Okay. And this is me again. And this is me looking at a quadrat looking for coastal algae distribution. So a little bit more on myself. This is where my school is currently located, Halifax, Nova Scotia. I am working with the Atlantic Ocean, and as of when the slideshow was made, we are in the Pacific Ocean, and this is approximately our current location, but the slideshow is a little delayed, so as you can see, I've made quite a trek, but I am happy to be here. So this is just a quick overview of everything that I am going to be covering today. First, I'm going to start off with what is a whale. Then I'll be going into some specific species that I personally find really interesting and some cool facts associated with them. And then I'm going to be covering our environmental impact as residents of a cruise ship. And then I have a big chunk of time reserved for questions that you guys may have. But first, a game. So I have hidden this, oh wait, I have a clicker. I've hidden this image, woo, production. I've hidden this image on one slide throughout my presentation. And if you are the first person, when you see this image, to yell, I see the blue whale, you get a bottle of wine. Yeah, it's a good prize, guys. It's a good prize. So what do you have to yell? I see the blue whale. Okay, I'm ready. Almost. Okay, so now we're going to be moving right on to things with what is a whale? So first off, a whale is a mammal, and there are three things that I will be covering on what makes a mammal a mammal. And the first is that it gives birth to live young. So we are mammals, whales are mammals. If you are a female, you're going to give birth to a live child. Whales give birth to live young, and here I have an image of a humpback whale with its calf. Mammals also breathe air. As you might know, whales use their blowhole. It acts as their nose in order to breathe and release air. And then a fun thing that a lot of people don't know, whales actually have hair. Now it's not as luscious and as beautiful as mine, but they have hair on their jaw and on their head, which use as sensory hairs. So you can see here on the image of the humpback whale, there's tiny, tiny little hairs on its chinny chin, and it's used to detect any changes in the water column, maybe potential prey movement, changes in temperature, a lot of fun things that we can't do with our hair. Fun facts with Nalene, whales have hips. As you can see, there are just two random bones here, and they're in the middle of no man's land. And if you play pickleball, you should never be in no man's land because you're useless there, which I have learned. But these hips are actually called vestigial hips, which is a fancy science word meaning useless. Through the process of evolution, they've retained these bones, but they've lost the legs that have been attached to them. Because whales once were this guy. This guy is named Pachysinidae, and fossil records from 50 million years ago from Pakistan were found of this guy. And through a lot of carbon dating and fossil work, scientists have discovered that this is the oldest relative to whales. And through the process of evolution and wanting to take advantage of the resources in the ocean, he evolved to become what we know as a whale. So his tail was widened, he had shortened legs turned into flippers, his snout was reduced, he lost his ears and most of his fur, and then became what we know as whales today. So this is a fun, maybe not. This is a graphic I made, and it just kind of gives more specifics on exactly what is a whale. So as we discussed, a whale is a mammal, and then when you get inside the mammal category, you're going to get to the whales. And the Latin name for whale is cetacean. And you're going to see I'm going to be trying to say a lot of Latin names. I'm not actually good at pronouncing Latin words, but scientists really like to use Latin words because it's supposed to unify science and knowledge. So if I were to go to a different country, say Japan, I could go into their database, type in cetacean, and get a bunch of papers on whales. Then the rest of the paper would still be in Japanese, so I couldn't understand it, but in theory, the thought is there. So within your cetacean category, you have two major whales, the first being mysticetes. And the main characteristic of a mysticete is the baleen. It's attached only to the upper jaw of a whale, and here I have the North Atlantic right whale. These baleen act as a sieve, so when the whale feeds, it takes in the large gulps of water, it retains the food, but pushes out the water through the baleen, and that's the major way that they feed. And so if you do not have baleen, you're probably an odontocete. An odontocete means you have teeth, and a way to remember that is like orthodontist. So if you're an odontocete, you could be a delphinidae, and a delphinidae is Latin for dolphin. So all dolphins are whales, but not all whales are dolphins. So now we're going to go into some specific whales and things I find interesting about them, finally. And the first one we're going to start off with is actually a dolphin himself. And I am going to get some crowd involvement because I hate talking a lot, surprisingly. So, does anybody know what this whale is? Yell it. Nice. They get harder, I promise you. It's not this easy the whole time. Okay, so its Latin name is Orcinus orca, which means demon from the deep. So there is a lot of stigma of calling the orca the killer whale, but honestly it's a coin toss between orca, which is a literal demon, and killer whale. They are found in all oceans. Apparently someone may have saw one today. I am very jealous. They have an average lifespan of 50 to 90 years, and other than being known as the killer whale due to their extreme hunting style, they are extremely maternal. They are actually some of the few species that have a post-reproductive life cycle. So oftentimes in a lot of animals, when a female is no longer able to reproduce, that's the tendency she passes away. But in orcas, they actually take on a grandmother role, and they will help protect the calf, feed the calf, teach the mother how to be a mother. They also are enablers to their sons. They allow their sons to be mama boys, and they will feed their son, they will hunt for their son, they will protect their son until they are 75 years old, as long as they possibly can. Another interesting thing is that they're the current species exhibiting speciation, which is when you take an animal and it becomes multiple species, whether it's done through physical boundaries or cultural boundaries. A physical boundary is like this podium, I can't get through there. Or a cultural one would be like, I just don't like you, so I'm not going to deal with you. And that process takes a long time, but it makes them not be able to intermate, then they can't reproduce any offspring. An example of this is in Vancouver Island. There's actually a species of orca there, but currently they are endangered because they're very picky and they only eat one type of fish, but we also eat that type of fish. So typically humans win the fight for resources, but there are conservation acts currently underway for them. They also have a penis, but more specifically, their penis is a 1-to-1 ratio to their dorsal fin right here. And it's not just for show, it's not just for fun, it's actually used for sexual selection. So a female choosing to find a mate is going to look for the male orca with the tallest dorsal fin, because that's going to give her the manliest man. So if I see a trend of men walking around with dorsal fins, I don't know why now. Okay guys, moving on. What whale is this whale? This one's a little harder. Anybody? Not a sperm whale. Not a beluga. Not a right whale. Okay. I think you guys had your fill. It is a long-finned pilot whale. Very close to my heart. I love these guys very much. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. But this means black pothead in Latin because they are known for their flat black head that looks like a cast iron pot. They are found throughout the southern hemisphere and northern Atlantic Ocean. They have an average lifespan of 35 to 45 years, and they get their English name from the fact that they have a leading member, similar to the Canadian goose. You know how they make the V formation and there's the guy at the front? So they have a version of that, but obviously in the water and not in the air. This does unfortunately lead to a lot of mass strandings because if the leading member washes ashore, everyone follows suit. So there's a little bit miscommunication there, but it is what it is. And then something as a scientist that I love is that there's 3 major calf stages associated with the long-fin pilot whales. So it makes it really easy to identify the age of the calves. The first stage, also not to interrupt, I took these photos, so you guys have to like them. But this photo here, it's very tiny, my apologies, but it's a gray lump, basically, and that's basically a newborn calf. The dorsal fin is really fat, poofy, and kind of slouched over, and has very distinct wrinkles. Then there's a middle stage where it's a more deeper gray color. The wrinkles are a little more fleshed out, and the dorsal fin is completely upright. And then the final stage is this image here. Again, not very clear, but if you want to see them after, I would definitely show you because I love talking about my photos. The dorsal fin is completely upright. It is the classic black color, but the wrinkles are still visible. And this is a video that I took, which maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And if you guys are really quiet, let's see, where? Here it is. If you're really quiet, you can actually hear the whales talking to each other. Not quiet at all. It's very loud. Never mind. Oh, it's not playing. I was just watching it because I missed it. It was such a good video. I don't know how to get it so you guys can see it. I'm glad. Maybe I will come back to the video after the presentation if we have time, and we can watch it then. Okay, moving on. Sorry about that, guys. In theory, that would be the video. Okay, what whale is this? Someone already said it. There we go. I see ya. Okay, classic whale here is the beluga. Again, not going to try to say that. They are found in the Arctic and the subarctic. They have an average lifespan of 35 to 50 years. And something that you guys might not know is that they actually don't have a dorsal fin. This is for 2 major reasons. One, they live in a very icy territory, so the dorsal fin would probably get caught on the ice. It also helps reduce heat loss. So obviously, very cold environment, your main goal is to retain as much heat as possible. Having no dorsal fin decreases your surface area to volume ratio, which just means you're more fat than you are flat, and that's the goal. They also are born gray. They're born a very deep gray color, and they don't turn their classic white color until they reach the age of 10 years old. And they're also one of the most vocal of all the whales. They have these things called contact calls, which act as names. They're specific to every individual within the pod. So they have basically an ability to call each other out and be like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? Or they tell you to come over here and get these hunts. It's really great for communication, prey capture, and a lot of other things. Okay guys, this is an easy one. Nice. Okay, they get harder, I promise. Okay, so as you guys know, this is a narwhal. They are found on the Atlantic side of the Arctic Ocean in Canada, Greenland, Norway, and Russia. They have an average lifespan of 25 to 50 years. this horn that you see here is actually a tooth and not a tusk. So it's different than what you would see in an elephant or a rhino. It is actually a tooth that grows through their upper lip. Very painful process. It never stops growing. Originally, scientists did not know why they had these tusks, because originally you would think that it would be used maybe to hunt prey, or maybe it would be used to hunt fellow narwhals in order to win the prize female. But they don't use it like a skewer to capture fish, and they're not fighting each other with it. Since it's a tooth, it has a lot of nerve endings, so people suspect that it is used to sense changes in the water column and to sense minute movements, but they still really don't know. And something recent that has occurred, and I probably already told some people about it because I love it, but a beluga pod has adopted a single narwhal. They are from the same grouping. They're the only two in the same shared taxonomic group, but there is no reason for this to happen. Scientists don't know why, they don't know when, and they don't know how. They could have stolen a baby narwhal and just kept it the whole time. No one really knows. They just know it happened, and it's beautiful, and it's cute. Okay, someone guessed this one already as well. Not a humpback. Sperm, there you go. Okay, sperm whale. They're often found in deep oceans, from the equator to the Arctic and Antarctic. They are the second deepest diving mammal after Kai's beaked whale. They can dive to depths as low as 3,000 meters. The main reason they're doing this is because their major prey source is the gigantic squid. Now, the gigantic squid is an example of my favorite marine thing ever. It's an example of deep sea giganticism, which is the tendency for things in the deep sea to become bigger than their shallow water counterparts. So a squid, typically, most people picture something around this size. A gigantic squid is longer than my wingspan. They're quite huge. They also have, and by also I mean the gigantic squid, have these very hard, indigestible beaks that they use to capture their prey. Now, these beaks are indigestible for the whales, so they build up in their intestines. And as these build up in their intestines, they need to expel them somewhere. One hole or the other. The whale has to get rid of it. And so once this item is expelled from the sperm whale, it typically can wash ashore and it will harden. And when it hardens, for some reason this whale poop smells really good. And it actually is a really big product in perfume, and it's called ambergris. And so it's very expensive. By gram, it's worth more than platinum. It's extremely rare, and a lot of perfumes in the Victorian era were actually made using this rock. Something else that's interesting is you guys might be thinking, who decided to name a sperm whale Sperm? He doesn't look like sperm. I don't know, maybe he does to you. But actually, in the time of whalers, when they would hunt whales for their blubber as a form of basically energy, they cut open his head, and they were like, wow, this white liquidy stuff in here, it's gotta be his sperm. He keeps it in his head. And they, I guess, assumed there was no female sperm whales because everything just had sperm in their head. But no, it's actually, surprisingly, not sperm, and it is just a different type of fat that is located in their head, which they use for echolocation. Like I was mentioning, how they hunt very deep in the ocean for the gigantic squid. They use these things called codas and clicks. I was in plan going to make those noises, but this microphone would be awful. So just imagine like a bird clicking or those coda sounds, and they use that to find the squid, and depending on how long it takes for the sound to reach back to them, they know how deep they have to dive. Finally, I have a lot on sperm whales, but they have the most recorded evidence of logging, which I mentioned earlier is whale sleeping. For some reason, they do it in the creepiest way possible, and they do it completely horizontal in the water. Most whales are just at the surface. These guys just are fully submerged, and they kind of look like they're dead. But they're not. They're exhibiting unihemispheric sleep, which is when one half of their brain is completely asleep. And you can see that because one of their eyes is actually closed. And they stay this way so they don't drown. They can passively swim, detect predators, sense prey, and also if they're a mother, they know where their calf is at all times. Okay, this is an easy one. Come on, guys. There you go. Nice. So this is a humpback whale, pretty known for its breaching ability, makes great whale watching adventures. They can be found in pretty much all oceans as they're crazy migrators. They have an average lifespan of 45 to 50 years, but records have shown a whale living to 80 years old. one of my favorite facts about the blue whale is not the blue whale, the humpback whale, is that it's always learning, and one technique it recently learned for feeding is bubble net feeding, which is what this image shows here. So this is when one humpback whale will produce bubbles to kind of school fish into a giant orb, a giant ball, and then another whale will come in and just lazily take a giant bite. And then they will switch places, so then the other whale will make the bubbles and the other whale will have the opportunity to eat all these easily accessible fish. They, as I mentioned, are major migrations. They will migrate 5,000 miles just to breed. They also are associated, or one of the major reasons that commercial whaling was decreased, it's not completely gone, and it is due to the fact that they have the humpback song. So they sing the same song for 2 to 7 years, and they will change it slightly depending on other whales that they meet. And then after a certain amount of time, the song completely resets. And this is like an example of whale culture. It's a growing field in marine biology, but because of this, activists and just the general public were able to learn that whales are more than just floating resources, but they actually have a life and a culture of themselves. Okay, this one's a little harder. Does anybody know who this whale is?
Gray whale?
No?
Is that a shark? A whale shark?
Not a whale shark. Pardon? No? Okay, I get 1 point for that. Okay, it's the North Atlantic right whale.
The whale.
Oh, we got it. Someone saw it. You get the ball line. Yay! Congratulations. But back to the North Atlantic right whale. This is its Latin name. They are found in the Atlantic coastal waters of eastern United States and Canada. And I may have said that I love the longfin pilot whale, but that was a lie, because I love this guy. He is my favorite whale. He constantly looks like he's mad at you. They have an average lifespan of 70 to 80 years, but currently it is only 22 years. They have a distinct V-shaped blow, so many whales tend to have a bubble blow when they are breathing through their blowhole, but this guy for some reason has a distinct V shape. He also has calocytes, which tend to people mistake as barnacles, and if you're not sure what a barnacle is, it's an invertebrate that will attach to anything hard, and it will stay there as it's a sessile organism, meaning non-moving. But because it's non-moving, it actually has the largest penis to body ratio of any animal on Earth. So it's going to make sure it gets its seed out there. I really like to talk a lot about penises, but that's my bad, guys. They're also, for the right whale, they're currently endangered, which is something that is very sad. So there are two major reasons for why they are endangered, and the first being the foundation of the past whaling that happened. They are actually called the right whale because whalers said that they were the right whale to hunt. They float when you kill them compared to most other whales which sink to the bottom of the ocean, which makes it easier to extract the resources from them. Another reason why that they're currently going extinct is climate change. This is called shift in their food location. So they eat a lot of copepods, which doesn't make sense to me because they're like this tiny. But due to changes in water temperature and water warming, the copepods have moved towards the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, where there's a lot of major shipping lanes. And this guy here, he eats weird. He, instead of taking big dives like the humpback whale does, he's a skimmer. So he just kind of vacuums the surface of the ocean, which works for him, but that does make him victim to a lot of ship strikes, as he's not taking very many deep dives and he gets to remain at the surface for the majority of the time. About 80% of right whales that are currently alive have either been entangled by fishing gear or have been victim of a ship strike. There are only 372 left, but Canada and the United States are working really hard in ensuring that they have the ability to regrow their population and combat this. So efforts are being made, and it's just great to know about them. And that's the first step in conservation, is education. So, okay guys, I got 2 more whales, including this guy, left. No. Take a look at this. Does anyone know what this might be? Any whale watchers?
Fin whale?
No, close. No? Okay. It's the minke whale. Did you say it? Did I miss you? No?
I said Minke, I meant Minky when I
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, again, this is their Latin name. They are found in the northern Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. They have an average lifespan of 50 years, and the reason why I was highlighting their little dorsal or their pectoral fins is because they're commonly identified by their minky mittens. They're white and they have distinct contrast compared to their black and gray bodies. And it's really adorable. If you've ever gone whale watching, I saw some on my longfin pilot whale research. They kind of like do like a belly up roll by your boat, and so you'll just see their little like fin come up and wave to you and go back down. I also have a video. I don't know if I'll be able to show it, but they're known as the Star Wars whale because their calls sound a lot like a lightsaber. So I don't know if it'll work, guys, so please don't yell at me if it doesn't. Oh, is it showing up? No, it's not. I'll play it from the sound.
En Movistar tenemos buenas noticias.
Cámbiate la nueva fibra Movistar para disfrutar de...
So they're Spanish also. Okay, you're gonna just hear the sound and not the video, but that's okay. Yeah. So it kind of sounds like a lightsaber, maybe like when they're... I don't know enough about Star Wars, so don't ask me questions, sorry Dad. But yeah, okay guys, this is my final whale of the night. Oh, maybe not, because I can't click. We made it. Okay guys, someone already said this. There you go, nice. It's the blue whale. Okay, so the blue whale, it's found in all oceans except for the Arctic, has an average lifespan of 80 to 90 years, and as many of you may know, it is the largest whale, but also the largest mammal on Earth, and can reach up to length of 30 meters, which is longer than a basketball court, not a field, and it is slightly smaller than Lady Liberty's arm. So it is a big whale. Being the biggest whale, it has the biggest reproductive output. These are all things I learned in school, by the way. I'm not just a weird person Googling all this information. I needed to know this. With a reproductive output every time the male is looking to reproduce of 20 liters and a reproductive member of 2.4 meters, which is bigger than me and my heels. So take that fact to dinner tonight and think on that. This here, many of you may have seen this image. It is the blue whale heart weighing 440 pounds. Crazy. Okay, so now we're going to my last segment of today. I will be discussing our environmental impact as residents of the Villa V Odyssey, or just a ship in general. I'm only covering two major examples. There are more being residents of a cruise ship, and there are even more as being humans, but it's good to just be aware, and it's the first step in conservation and sustainability is education, and I hope to make it a little interesting and not sad. But we have two major impacts that I am going to discuss, and the first one being underwater noise pollution. So we are a vessel, and vessels make noise. But in the water, sound travels 4.3 times faster and 60 times farther. So any bit of sound is much more impactful in the ocean, especially since whales, as I mentioned before, they have fat in their head and in their jaw, and that's how they sense sound. So they're extra sensitive as they don't have ears. So it's the vibrations that let them know the presence of sound. Then they use this to live their daily life, and the presence of ship noise will impact their communication, navigational issues. It often causes strandings. It impacts their ability to feed, similar to the sperm whale. It could interrupt the codas and the clicks used to find the gigantic squid, and it can cause permanent hearing damage, especially to calves as they are babies. The second major impact is climate change. This is a vessel, and vessels release carbon. And as many of you know, carbon is a major contributor to climate change. And that has the potential to increase sea temperature, also increase sea level in general due to the melting of the ice, acidification inside the ocean, as well as changes in food sources. As I mentioned with the right whale, its food shifted due to the warming waters. Why care? This is probably the question I get most as a marine biologist, and it's why should I care about X species? And honestly, as a human, I understand, because if all the whales were to die right now, what impact would that have on you? And I'm biased because I love everything marine, so I'm like, how could you not love them? But I do have to understand both perspectives. So there are a lot of good that whales do for us. And the first one is that they act as a whale pump, which helps with the fishing industry. So whales have this weird tendency to eat at the surface of the water, and then they go all the way down and poop. I don't know why. I've never been told why they like to poop here, but that is able to take nutrients from the high nutrient dense surface water into the nutrient deficient deeper waters. And this allows for an increase in the food web, which will create more diversity, which in turn helps us as we are very dependent on the ocean as a food source. Another thing that whales do is they have the ability to sequester 33 tons of carbon throughout their life, as they take the carbon and then they'll die, sink to the deep ocean, and that carbon will go with them. And they also are major helpers in industry. As many of you may have gone whale watching yourselves, they often support local towns in those areas, as whale watching can be a major source of revenue for those areas. And as I mentioned previously, they are very helpful in the fishing industry. So that's my presentation today, my first one ever. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, the floor is now open. Also, if you see me later in the ship and you have suggestions on how I could be better, please tell me. I know I've used the word. Okay, question.
Those barnacle-looking thing, calocytes, you know, are those like gray whales? They have lots of those on them. Are those also the calocytes?
The gray whales typically have barnacles. Yeah, so also like humpbacks, if you saw my image at the beginning when he was kind of like protruding from the water, barnacles are, they spawn into the ocean. They just release all their reproduction into like their larvae into the water column. So wherever the larvae can find somewhere to attach, it will. Whether it's moving, non-moving, alive, dead. If we were underwater, we'd probably be covered in barnacles. Especially since whales don't have an ability to remove them themselves. They're so big though that it doesn't really impact them. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't. If you were a smaller organism and you had a lot of barnacles growing on you, it would hinder your ability to swim. But these things are massive pounds of blubber. They're doing just fine. Yeah.
We live on Cape Cod, and
Okay.
in recent years we've been having a lot more strandings, especially of dolphin, but also a couple of whales. There was a whale stranding, whale beaching, like, I don't know, a month or so ago, right at Wellfleet. Do you have any insight about why that's happening more often up in that
Could
area?
you repeat the question, please?
I can say it, and then it will be on a microphone. You said Cape Cod?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Cape Cod, she was saying that there's been more strandings recently of dolphins, and I'm assuming when you say whales, you mean like single whales, not like
Yeah,
pods.
single.
I couldn't speak for the exact reason why that specific area is experiencing more strandings, but in general, the world has been experiencing more strandings. And one major reason is the addition of noise in the ocean. It causes a lot of mass confusion with navigation with whales. So they get a lot of information kind of just in their brain, and a lot of times that stresses them out and they're not quite sure what it means. So often they will resort to a place that's not making noise, which is often the coast. Yeah. Yes?
Other than the obvious location, what is the difference between a southern right whale and a northern right whale?
So one, population. Their southern right whales are doing pretty okay right now. They are not facing major extinction. Other than that, it's an example of speciation, again, similar to the orcas. They were once one, and then through, I believe it was cultural, I think they just stopped liking each other. They kind of became different species. As to exact specific differences, I could not speak more specifically than that, but I know they have similar feeding habits as well. So they are also skimmers. So they're very similar. They just kind of are mean to each other, I guess. Any other questions? Yeah?
The whales that are the skimmers.
Yep.
Has anyone thought that maybe they could put something on the whale, like a signal or a light, that would alert ships and boats that they're there?
Yeah, so the right whales currently, every right whale is pretty much known. They have a lot of tracking and sonar on the right whales. For skimmers that typically tend to be big whales, that's definitely possible. The problem is, one, money, it's very expensive, and then two, it has to be designed in a way that won't impact the whale itself, That's a big issue for a tendency of smaller whales and also pinnipeds or seals. You want to track these animals, you want to know where they are, but you also don't want to be a hindrance to them if your goal is conservation. But with the right whales who are skimmers, their location is pretty well known, and if anybody has sighted one, it's legally mandatory that you say that you've seen one, and then that shipping lane is completely shut down for about a month. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sorry, I'm back.
All these I think they're orcas that are attacking small boats around the entrance to the Mediterranean.
Okay.
What kind of whales are those? I think they're orcas, but I'm not sure.
I haven't read that specifically, but if you think, like if you're saying they're orcas do have a tendency to go after small boats. And it's just because they're very dominant and protective, especially if they are like protecting a calf. So if there was a calf in the pod, especially since there's grandmas there and everyone knows how much your grandma will fight for you. So that may be an aspect, but honestly, I can't speak confidently on that because I haven't read the specifics on that. But when I do, because that sounds really interesting, I will definitely get back to you on that. Yeah, you had a question.
Actually, that was my same question. and I had read that scientists have determined that it's juvenile orcas who are born.
Oh.
That's what I read, and I was going to ask you if that was really true.
Well, I mean, there is evidence of orcas playing, and from different perspectives, it's definitely not playing. It's like when they hunt seals and they'll throw them around in the air after they've passed. From us, it's viewed as very sad, and it is. But to them, they're just like, I'm having a great time. Similar probably to what they're doing with these boats, is that they are like, I got nothing to do. There's this weird boat here. I'm gonna, I guess, capsize it, which makes them jerks, to be honest, if that's true. So in part, their name may be accurate, but I think it's just a perspective thing. So they're just mean. Yeah?
How fast do they swim, and does that somehow play into why do they get hit by ships?
So whales in general, or well, the speed varies. If you're speaking when they're skimming, they're not moving very fast. So when they're moving slowly in order to capture as much. They also can exhibit like a kind of suction force, and they move, and they're going to pull more fish in. So they're not moving very fast, and they don't have the ability to speed up. I mean, they're pounds of fat. They can't really go from 0 to 60 like a car. So if a ship's coming, all they can do is really just like kind of hope and keep moving. The smaller whales like dolphins and orcas do have the ability to move faster, but a whale like the right whale, which is one of the great whales, he can't move very fast. So it's kind of on us to be aware that they have the potential to interfere with us, because it is a whale, doesn't understand what a boat is, so it doesn't know really to avoid said boat. Yes, Joey?
What's their mating ritual that they would have according or anything that
For right whale?
any of the whales?
Any of the whales?
Are they all similar in that way? Do they have a common mating ritual? Do we know anything about that?
We know a little bit on whale mating. They all, like humpback whales, as I was mentioning, they like to go to the same place, kind of like salmon. They like to go back to the same place and breed and also give birth. Other whales, I can't speak for specifics, but they all have different elements to them. Like the female right whale, when it would like to reproduce, it will actually go like belly up and show her assets and wait for a male right whale to swim by and be like, I like that, I'm gonna reproduce with that one. So it's all very different. It also depends on who is selecting. So in orcas, the females select often, but in the right whales, the male is selecting a mate. So it all kind of depends on who's the boss. I was gonna make a different joke, but that's not good. So yes.
Have you noticed any impact to the offshore windmill farms?
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Officer of the Watch speaking from the bridge. From our navigational bridge, we are currently observing the group of dolphins which are on our starboard, crossing towards water.
That side.
Power quality, scaling.
That side.
Thank you, Nalene.
Thank you.